understanding what do I want to gain in this situation, in this meeting? What is my goal at the end? What do I want to have achieved? This is so much more important when you're doing it online than when you're in just a room, because it's more it's easier to just circumvent everything and get lost when you're online, because you get distracted even more. Nobody's there. Sometimes you don't even see faces. You don't see behaviors. You just go on talking, and it's worse. So all the things that you normally do, you have to do even more prepared and more down to the point. And that was a good understanding to find out you have to have the same rules, even maybe one or two more, and really have somebody who drives these roles in meetings.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to your brand new podcast called In Your Shoes. This podcast is for you to learn more about new people and professions from around the world. I would like to take you on a journey to understand the life and times of a new person every 2 weeks and get a chance to get into their shoes to learn what they do, why they do, and how they do it.
On the show today, I have Frank, who is an Agile coach and a former colleague of mine. In my past interactions with Frank, I've always loved his interactions with people, the need to make things clear and organize discussions to make it productive. I really enjoy that aspect of Frank. And that's why I'm so excited to have Frank on the podcast today. So, welcome to the podcast, Frank.
Hi Vivek, so nice to hear you again. It's been a while, so it's very, very nice. And hi everyone out there. I'm Frank, 46 and still alive. Yeah. So it has really been a while.
It is.
So maybe for those out there, I'm going to share a little bit about me.
Yeah.
So I grew up and studied physics in Kiel. That's in North Germany. And I rushed over here to Berlin in 2005 and built up my small, lovely family. And so my professional life is mostly, I've been working in several companies and really a lot of roles, mostly coming from a call center. Because I didn't find a job here in Berlin as physicist. And then I became product owner, scrum master, and a few very nice roles, and slowly turned into an Agile coach. And currently I'm working at Mr. Specs since 2019. And I also do some consulting as a freelancer when the topic is interesting, or being a pro bono coach for coaching for communities, and just recently.
Wow.
So quite a journey in very different roles, and it came very organically.
Wow, that's very interesting. I would love to first understand from physics to Agile Coach.
Yeah.
What made that transition happen?
To be very honest, I was very happy to finish my physics studies and have nothing to do with this anymore, because I found out that I'd like to talk more with people and work with people than being somewhere in experimenting away in a cellar or something like that. So I found out that it wasn't the wisest choice, but it helped me to go into problems in a very organized way. I think this is the thing that I learned as being a physicist: starting organized, go through a problem, and don't be scared on a problem. I think this is what I learned the most. And I didn't like all the theory physics stuff. It wasn't my stuff at the end. So I started really as a job next to my flat here. There was a call center from a web hoster, and I just started there because I didn't have a job and I didn't want to go to get some money from state authority or something like that, right? So I just started there, and slowly, within a half a year, I was mentor, team lead, then project manager. I just got there, stuck in that very nice company, and slowly got the hang of working with people, and also like diving into software development, which kind of is still where I'm here now, but never as a coder. So of course I can do my website, but that wasn't really the thing that I enjoyed the most. But really, I found out at first, finding out what a product is and how to deal with product management. That was the first thing that I really liked, because then you have also this customer interaction, and that was really nice. Understanding why I build this product, for what I make this product, that was cool. Then working with teams on bringing this product live, that was also amazing. And then this turn just happened. I found out that working with people is amazing, and the product in itself just went a little bit out of my focus, and I wanted to understand what makes teams work together nicely and neatly. And of course, it's individuals, right? And individuals need care. And this is where we met, right?
True.
At Zalando, with people leads or practice leads at the end, where we really deep dived into how to give people the best possibility to grow, how to help them. And that was amazing. And with all the things, because I was practice lead for producers, which is kind of Scrum Masters, right? I got so many input from all over Zalando at that time. What works, what doesn't work. You know how it was. I think I had 26 producers at my time for a year. So 26 different locations within our company. That was overwhelming. I think at the end of the job, I had like just 16, because I could make small teams out of them and let them go on their own way. That was quite nice. But when I had 16, I could really dive into their behaviors, into their teams, into their departments. And as this role changed again, you know how it is at our lovely Z, it changed for me to understand more how departments work together and the people within, right? So I started to be an Agile coach, and that was 2 years at Zalando, and now 1 year here at Mr. Specs, really finding out how teams, how departments work, and that you need to find out how to remove bottlenecks, how to make them come together, and not just talk, but really finding out, okay, this is what you want to achieve. Now, how can you achieve it in this small hour that you sit together? And as you know, these huge meetings that we have with OKRs and so on, how to make that effective and efficient as well, right? So that was really, really amazing to understand. And how do teams from other departments work together? And that is still something that I'm very happy to be in, because it's amazing. to see people work together and find out, this is what we want to achieve together, and then do it. Yeah. It's a long story.
Oh, that's really very valuable. So, Frank, I want to just get right to this. So, as part of your current profession as an agile coach at Mr. Specs, uh, walk us through what this role is, and especially for people who may not understand agile coaching in general, the aspects around it. How would you explain them? What is your role in Mr. Specs?
I think this is already quite interesting, because I think this role, Agile Coach, is even for my profession very hard to understand. And everybody kind of defines it maybe a little bit differently. So let me define it my way. So I help teams and departments to collaborate and work together in efficient and effective ways. It's more common to know that role of a Scrum Master, which is very much focused on a team or two teams to make them do the best they can in a software development framework called Scrum. And an Agile coach, or agility coach, as I like to call myself, is more reduced from all the frameworks, so loose from all these frameworks, and not fixed on a team, but tries to have an overview of everything. So from my perspective, an Agile coach is a different evolution of a Scrum Master. Or you can call me a nanny of an organization. It fits as well.
All right. You mentioned collaboration quite a bit when you were explaining about your role. From the view of an agile coach, how does that role enable and promote collaboration within teams?
So first of all, it's about people's dynamics. How do they interact together? It is about processes. So finding out checkpoints, when to talk, how to talk, about what they have to talk. Having agendas in meetings is a very small thing, but something that everybody's lacking. And of course, purpose of a meeting. And then understanding how to visualize the work of a team. This is the very first thing that you do. Always visualize something, because if you visualize something, you can start seeing what is happening and where bottlenecks appear. And this is the starting point of a journey on improving slowly, step by step, how the interactions between a team, between teams, between organizational parts work. This is where it all starts.
You define collaboration as working with people, have identifying the dynamics of people, like when to have discussions and having agendas of meeting, and especially visualizing the work of a team, which is really interesting. So if you as an agile coach, if you're working for a kind of a mid to large organization, obviously you would not want the particular teams that you work with get too dependent or over dependent, as I call it, on one individual who's an agile coach. So how do you ensure that there is some sense of self-sustaining process around collaboration, which does not get dependent upon an individual like an agile coach, but rather it becomes a part of the organizational system?
So very first, I think if you would nail it down to a percentage of output a team could do, when you have somebody like me in a team, right? Because I'm a headcount, and I'm even overhead, right? Because I'm not contributing to anything a team really is doing, because I'm just there for the interactions. But it is possible that when you are in a team, you get the entire team more professional and more, you get around 25% more output, maybe even from a team, when you have somebody in there like me. So, and that already counts quite a lot. And so this is something that if you're coming from a business perspective, you want the teams to be more proficient, you want them to work better together, but of course it needs to pay out. So you need one person to make them come better. There needs to be some substance. So this is one thing you always have to keep in mind. I'm overhead, but 25% of more outcome is tremendously, if it counts to an organization. And it even sums up when you are in a possible situation where you can have effect of many teams and finding out organizational stuff. So this is, first of all, very important to understand that, of course, you have to deliver to the business as itself, right? Scrum Masters, as I said, are more linked to a team. Agile coaches can't do that because they have a higher height where they are working. And for me, exactly, I have this problem. I have 8 teams that I'm working with, and I can't be there for them. And whatever I'm doing, wherever I'm dipping in, of course, I can't be there to sustain a habit, which takes months. So what I need to do is finding out, as I like to say, scaling options for myself. And what I do to make myself not a bottleneck, which is a problem, of course, is that I enable others to do what I can do, to give them a possibility to understand, hey, this is why you should do it, and this is how you can do it. And I train them doing it. Let me give you an example. So software development teams normally like to do, after an iteration, a retrospective, to look back, to find out, hey, this is what we did good. We want to sustain this, make it a habit, do it again. Or this didn't work out so fine. So how can we improve ourselves? So this is a normal part of their work together as software development teams. And if you think about me now, I have 8 teams, and 8 times a retrospectives after, in my case now, 2 weeks, is sometimes a juggling of impossibility to be in every retrospective at the same time, right? So of course you can try to schedule, but then again, maybe I'm not there because something else is more important. So how can I make this retrospective still happen? And there are 2 possibilities. I take somebody in the team, train them up, and say, hey, this is how you can run this retrospective, so that I'm not a bottleneck anymore. This is one way to do it. But it still feels bad if somebody in the team is doing a retrospective. And because, of course, they want to contribute to their team and also give their insights of what went good and what went not so good.
True.
So what I'd like to do, and I started it also in at Zalando at my time is having a pool of moderators. This is what we did as Agile coaches to find out, hey, this is a pool of individuals that can run retrospectives and rotate through every team that is needing of a moderator at that time. So it is such a beautiful thing if you have teams that are normally working together, switching their moderators and doing the retrospectives of the other teams on different levels. Because first of all, the person who's doing the moderation understands suddenly what is happening in the other teams. And hey, the problems of that team are very, very similar to the ones that he's experiencing in his team. So there's kind of empathy going on. And even more,
Right.
when they are working together, you find out, these are the problems we as our team are inflicting on that team. So this is mostly a win-win situation. And by enabling 4 or 5 people, they can rotate, they can do the work for themselves, and I'm not a bottleneck anymore. Whoops, I'm out.
Right. Right. That's actually really nicely put. Thank you, Frank, for sharing that. I really liked how you framed this into scaling the capabilities that you want to kind of promote in an organization through Agile coaching. I want to circle back to perhaps what you were mentioning just briefly before this question around impact, and I really like that topic because obviously it's really controversial as well. How do you see as an agile coach? How would organizations? How should organizations measure the impact of having an agile coach in them?
I think it is always problematic because the very first thing that I normally do when I'm going into organization, a unit, whatever, a team, I have to analyze first what is happening. Because normally they don't know how bad they are or how good. Let's put it that way. Sometimes they are extremely good and I don't need to do anything. That's cool. But they don't have a measurement. They don't have transparency on how good they are. And not having this basic data, it's very hard to, after that, say, hey, I made this kind of impact. That's tough. So all that I can do is start measuring or making the ground to start measure, then measure, and after that have an impact on understanding on what my impact was. But of course, a team, you could say, learns from itself and would have been maybe the same way improved on themselves. It could be, yes, of course. So I can never ever say this is what my impact was, being 100% sure. Because I don't know what the data was before I was there.
Right. So you have something like a baseline on which then you can identify. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. So what I can do and what I always like to do when I start working is I set myself goals. And I align these goals with the management. And I say, okay, if I'm there, how would you measure what would be a success for you in the next 6 months? What would be a goal that you have by hiring me? And that's quite interesting for me because then I find out what is it that they value? What is it that I need to work 4 in their teams. And it puts me off the out of the way of defining my own goals, because I do it for the business. I'm there to make the business run nicer. I'm not there to be a feel-good manager or something like that. So of course I do that, but that's how I do my job, and not why I do my job. So I give the management the possibility to set my goals, and I give them a possibility to say, okay, this is how I would do it, what my intentions would be, to pay into that one, into their goals. And then, of course, we find out together measurements, how you can measure then that I reached that goal. So it's like an OKR process, you could call it like that, right? You find out a situation that you want to be in, define how you could measure that you're in this situation. And this is mostly what I would propose when you're an Agile coach, how to measure your success. And because everything else is just, oh yeah, I did this, I did this.
Right.
It's a task list that you do. You want to reach a situation where the business is more successful, and the things that you can do to impact it. So it's a different kind of talk than, oh yeah, how impactful have you been? Because my work is through people, with people, and not... I'm not doing roadmaps. I'm not doing concepts of a product or something like that. And even product managers, they don't do the work in itself. Of course, they have the ideas, the concept in mind, but the real work belongs to the developers who bringing this live. So it's also a little bit like indirect work. For me, even more, because as I said, I'm working with people. So for me, if you measure an impact of an Agile coach, find out what he needs to do. So find the goal, how to measure it with the senior management at best.
Right. Very wonderfully put. Thanks, Frank, for sharing that. So I want to get to your day. What is... how does it look like, a particular or a typical day, if you have a typical day in your day-to-day work, in your life as an Agile coach?
Good question. So normally I work like in waves. As I said, I'm mostly working with the IT teams, so they have a cadence, as I like to call it, so a rhythm of meetings that are reoccurring, where I'm helping. So the retrospectives, the demo meeting, maybe somewhere in between, also with the replenishment or grooming sessions, whatever. So there are set meetings where I could attend and help them if I'm not scaling myself, which is on a 2 weeks cadence. Okay, so I run retrospectives every 2 weeks, and then I'm quite busy. But then there are times when I'm not in these rhythms, and I have to find out what I have to do, right? So there are ways of being neatly put into time schedules, and where I'm externally driven, also OKR workshops, right? So it's at the end of the quarter, there's always a lot to do. In between, it's not so much. So I have to find out how can I contribute and make myself helpful. And then it's for me finding out needs of the organization. So I see, especially in Corona times, I had to find out, okay, how can we transfer the habits of our behaviors online? So I had to make concepts and understand how to work with our collaboration tool that we are using. So the software, how to collaborate here, and how to make online meetings efficient and effective as well. So that these ideas I had to, of course, try to conceptualize and then communicate and train people how to use our collaboration software and so on. So suddenly I'm busy again, and I have to schedule myself. So I see, okay, these are the behaviors of a department, of an entire organization, and I find myself focus areas where to work on. It's always transparency. It is always priority. It's always communication. And you have to be deeply set into an organizational structure to understand how the interactions are. And so I can't really tell you what my day is because I normally don't know it. And of course, I'm also there for one-on-one coachings. So I have my dailies with the leads and help them to do partly my work, to be honest, of course. So how to enable their teams. But yes, this is leadership. It is, how do I structure my team? So I want to enable the leads to know exactly what I'm doing. So this is definitely something that happens always. And also the product managers, I'm quite happy about that. Sometimes come to me and ask me, okay, how can I run this session with my stakeholders to gather requirements on my product? Or how would you do that, Frank? And well, then I'm helping them either just by giving ideas, also on concepts, giving feedback on what I think. So I'm there to give feedback, and they just grab me when I have a time, and I just give them the feedback that they need. So I can't really say this is my day because it changes. Sometimes it's hard set, and sometimes I have time to think about and analyze.
I like the emphasis on working in waves. I think that rightly captures the periodic nature of your role as you explained it here. All right. I want to touch upon something interesting that you mentioned here, especially in this post-COVID world. You'd mentioned about how you think about how you transform the habits and make it kind of available online in this post-COVID world. So could you share a little bit of what you have learned, especially to enable collaboration in a remote environment, and what do you do to enable that transformation?
Yeah, these COVID times were quite crazy. Before I would have never said that my profession, my job would be possible to be run in a remote environment, because for me it was always, we have to be co-located. This is the best way, the best interactions. You need this social closeness to see what is happening, and also find out the behaviors that are not verbally but also on gestures and so on. Yeah, and I was wrong. It still works. And that was quite funny to understand. I'm even more busy than before, which is kind of strange, but I like it. So a meeting normally, a normal meeting you can do easy online, right? So you have always one person who should be more or less having the hat on. So he should either moderate or drive the topic forward. This is normally the organizer, right? And that is easily transferable. Of course, you have to find out, okay, how do we deal with interactions within that meeting? So all those habits that you normally have or don't have in meetings by, okay, I have something to say, and raising a hand, who does that?
Yeah.
Online, it is so much more important that you exactly do that, because otherwise this meeting is total chaos. And also neatly time box topics, understanding what do I want to gain in this situation, in this meeting, what is my goal at the end, what do I want to have achieved. This is so much more important when you're doing it online than when you're in just a room, because it's more it's easier to just circumvent everything and get lost.
Yeah.
When you're online, because you get distracted even more. Nobody's there. Sometimes you don't even see faces. You don't see behaviors. You just go on talking, and it's worse. So all the things that you normally do, you have to do even more prepared and more down to the point. And that was a good understanding to find out you have to have the same rules, even maybe one or two more, and really have somebody who drives these roles in meetings. And also these interactions that you normally have in teams. You have a daily, you have several meetings, you maybe have a big demo meeting at the end, how to do that. It's the effectiveness is one thing, but these time boxing, this, okay, we're out, let's take this topic, it's nice, let's have a follow-up meeting there. Do we really have to be all together in this call right now? Who's really needed? All these things that we normally do, they have to be there as well, of course, when you're online. And for some teams who were, and that's, I have to tell this, I had a very nice team that is extremely socially connected, and they really love to work together, and they had a hard time going into a remote setup, and they said to themselves, okay, we have this meeting and that meeting where we still come together, and we have like a coffee 5 minutes breaks together and just chat, and we're gonna have remote lunch together, and we're gonna have at the evening we still meet, and so on. So they really set themselves so many meetings as they would normally have, just in a remote environment. And after 2 weeks' time, when we did the retrospective, they were totally exhausted and said, oh, holy moly, I don't get away from my laptop anymore. I like these sessions. I like to talk with you guys, but it's driving me nuts. There are days when I don't even move my feet out of the door, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So they overdid it. But they recognized and they steered against it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you can do too much. But I saw that it is possible to keep up these social interactions. And that was a nice thing to witness. For other teams, where already some externals were working together, where the social interaction wasn't that nice and not so close, but more on a professional level, I saw it was very much helpful to have 2 check-ins, or 1 check-in and a check-out at the end. So have a closer frame than just the check-in every morning. Because then you can calibrate easier. What is happening. So each team had different dynamics, how to deal with finding focus and steering again to the most important thing they have to do. And that was quite interesting to see. And also to run experiments with the teams, how to do that. And also one thing, normally what I like to do when running OKR workshops, objectives and key results, we have them at Mr. Specs on a company level. And normally I like to put a lot of people in a room talking together, defining for themselves goals and the key results, how to measure the goals. And well, that doesn't work online anymore. So we had to find out, me and my colleague, how to virtualize that, how to digitalize this. And we're working with Google Jamboards. I love that stuff. So digital whiteboards to capture ideas, but also with breakout sessions as well. So that you have sessions where you are all together. Then you say, okay, for this topic, go into this remote breakout session, and this and this and this. And then me and my colleague, we just split up and try to jump into each of these sessions one by one and try to help them to be effective in their breakout session. But then we come back together and present what happened in those breakout sessions, and so we can gather feedback again and so on. So the dynamics are similar to the ones in the real world. You just have to transfer them into a remote way of working, and find out how to do this best. And I found out, if they don't prepare, it's even worse in a remote meeting, in a remote session, than it is when they are in a big group in one room. It's even worse. If you're not prepared, the session will not go right, because and this is something that is not so nice in remote ideation. Ideation is so much about talking with each other, with something like interacting with each other. And since just one person can talk, and nobody is perfect at drawing as good as their colleagues, sometimes it's not an option to just have a whiteboard and draw and talk and whatever. It just doesn't work so nicely. It can work, of course, it does, but it's harder than when you meet together, because these small interactions, these gestures, they're just missing. And so ideation is harder online, and in big crowds, so hard that I don't want to do it. Really, it's for many people, it's very, very frustrating to do ideation online. So I do it with a subset to start already something, and then we have something to discuss, and that gives and inspires the others an idea and a possibility to come up with own ideas afterwards. And maybe in that session to put 1 or 2 more ideas that they feel are important into that session. So you have a substance of ideas you can discuss, maybe add some more, but then It's way more focused. And this is something that I found out. Being prepared is even more vital than before. Time boxing is even more vital than before.
Right. So what you're saying is the transformation is not just taking what works in an offline, in-person environment and putting it online, but rather thinking about and making sure that there is a sense of balance. So it's not like having too many meetings in a day. And you also emphasized on having a better prepared session.
Yes.
And anything that has an element of ideation and brainstorming, it's usually difficult to do it in a remote setting.
Yeah, at least for many people, I wouldn't do it anymore. I tried it a few times. I failed a few times. And failing is good, right?
Yeah.
This is where you get the best input from. So indeed, iterating on what works in the real world not always is transferable. But when you have a gold nugget in, you can iterate to get it better. And this is what you need to do. I think the very first online OKR sessions I did, they were horrible. Because I tried to do it exactly like I do it in real life, right? And it just failed tremendously. It was a waste of time, and the next session was already better. So this iterative approach that we in software really love and have in our DNA is even more important. And you have to get feedback fast on what happened in that session, even more than you have it in real life, because in real life you see what their faces always and behaviors. You don't have it in not always in remote, so it's even more vital to stick what you know and what you normally would suggest also to do. Get feedback, improve, find out ways how to make it better, right? So this is even more important than before. So doing slack here is not an option. Being unprepared is not an option. So this is, in a way, it makes also it makes it nicer. If everybody's prepared, suddenly it just rushes by and we're done. We have meetings that normally take way longer being done in half time because everybody's prepared. We can talk about decisions, and then it's that. That's cool. That's way more effective.
Agree. I want to take a segue, Frank, at this stage. Every profession and job has its own share of stereotypes attached to it, right? The perceptions, which sometimes are not right and sometimes may be true in some sense. From your view of an agile coach so far in your experience, what are the stereotypes that you're aware of?
The stereotypes that I see is that we're trapped in being a retrospective moderator or something like that. Oh, he's the facilitator. He'll just do that. But it's more to that. And just rushing from one meeting to the next, one retro to the next. I am too expensive to just be a moderator in sessions, in small team meetings or whatever. I'm too expensive for that. Why should I always do that? This is where I like to have a rotation, get it to the team members that they also can do that. So for me, it's enabling them. If an agile coach puts him or herself into a situation where he's a bottleneck, they are the only ones doing it, then they failed. And I see it often that they just run the retros, and when they are not there, then suddenly it doesn't happen. So this trap of always rushing from one meeting to the next one is a mistake. Also, we love to optimize. We love to get processes perfect, and we stick to frameworks like Scrum. It always has to be a secure sprint, and being tied up in these values and principles of one framework, and forget about, well, there's more to it. There are principles that are beyond that. They're beyond that framework that we're using. And hey, man, it's totally fine if you have a sprint that you can change the topics in between. If the business needs a different story to be worked on, why wait 2 weeks? It's damaging. What you need to do is have a discussion. Okay, you want something more important. That's fine. We need something that we committed on to get out, so that we have a discussion. If you put something in, something else needs to be deprioritized. That's the discussion I like to have. Not, no, this is a secure sprint, and you can come back in 2 weeks' time, and so on, so on, so on. Right? So it is that there, don't stick to the framework just because the framework tells you. The framework is there to enable your team. It is there to enable the business, and not just because of the framework. Not doing Agile because of Agile. We are there to achieve the best outcome. And sometimes that means, yeah, okay, you don't stick to the Scrum rules. That's fine then. As long as it's not hurting, that's totally okay. And as I said, we like to over-optimize at times. You can locally optimize a team, 2 teams, but then fail in the overall organizational setup of a department. That's like if you do the best engine, a Formula One engine, and it's so powerful and it works, and it's in a Trabi or in a VW Beetle, so it doesn't work, right? So if the environment is neglected, and you don't look outside of your team, then you fail again. Individuals are set up in a team, so they have not only their own boundaries, but they are spun up in the boundaries of the entire team. A team is hung up in a department, and it is limited by how the department is working. And this is why I say a Scrum Master is good for a team. It's a starting point. But then you need to look outside. And when you do this and you are looking outside of your small little area, then you get into system thinking, into systematics, and into behaviors. And this is where an Agile coach slowly transfers, because you're looking into the system and you're trying to understand how the behaviors from outside become the behaviors inside. And this is a trap that we normally have, just a too small view. And of course, if I talk with you as a lead about the mechanics in your team, that's okay. But if I talk to a VP, a head, on the behaviors of a team, and that I do retrospectives and so on, hey, come on, they want to understand the outcome. They have a different language. And this is also something that I had to learn the hard way, that I have to address upper management in a way different language. I don't talk about story points, throughput, whatever. I talk about outcome. I talk about transparency. something like that. Information flow, and not this is the process and here's the demo. So it's a way different level that you approach people, and this is sometimes very good to consider again, to ground yourself to whom am I talking, for whom am I doing that, not be in your small little system, but look outside. I think these are at least the stereotypes that I know of. Most probably there are way more than that, but I think that's already enough.
But this has been insightful. Thank you for sharing this, Frank. We are almost at the end of our conversation, but I don't want to leave this session without talking about your suggestion to someone who may be interested in getting into the same profession. So where do you think they should start, what they should study, and more prominently, what experiences you would like them to have?
I had a lot of people who wanted to try to come into this profession, and let me get this straight. It is a leadership position. It is a lateral leadership position because you tell other people how to behave, how to work. It is even a crutch for the leadership because they are doing leadership work. This is what leaders normally need to do: analyze team behaviors and make it better. So starting from scratch, it is very hard to get into this role, and I find certificates quite lacking. I had a lot of interviews with people who had like really a lot of knowledge on frameworks, on certificates that they gained, but then I came up with very basic questions on behaviors that they had to change in their teams, and I saw them already failing. It is unfortunately a job that needs experience to be able to do it, able to understand how team mechanics work. So of course you can do a Scrum Master training, you can do certificates on system thinking, which is good, behaviors and so on. The real starting point is at your work, where you are right now. When you're working in your team, think about how can I come up with ideas how to make this team work better. Be the driver of your team next to your lead. Start really implementing or making them more focused. And this is where these Scrum Master trainings definitely come quite handy. But it is the starting point is in your team, and finding out how you can gain their trust, how you can make them become better next to your own work. This is the real starting point, I think, and this is where you can start. Also outside of software, I saw so many very great people not being in software. This is not a software only job, I would say. So there are cool books you should read, like 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni, I think he's called. Getting Things Done for Self-Management is also something very nice. But the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team give you very nice insight how you can transfer your team to become better. And this Getting Things Done helps you for the interactions for yourself and to help others to be more pragmatic in approaching things and self-organized. So these two things are very, very, very basic to start in. And then slowly evolve yourself. I found it very hard to start your career with being a Scrum Master. you don't start as a lead. You start as a team member. And then you slowly head into this direction. Those who organically became Scrum Masters, I found were the best ones, and those more experienced. The other ones are doing it by the book and don't know why. I'm sorry to say that. For me, it's really an experience thing, and you get better by the years. Maybe this is because I'm old and I want to say that, but I want to justify myself. But I think this is what I saw. And what I just can say. You can do certificates. I just have one certificate as a product owner, even not even a Scrum Master. And I had a very amazing certificate from LESS, so large Scrum. But that's all. And I'm still a senior Agile coach running with senior management going around. So it's really, I don't think, and I'm sorry for saying that for the certificate industry, I don't think you need really a certificate. It comes while you work with a team. And if you see that you are the nanny of a team, then you are on the way to it, but you have to be more focused and not being the servant of a team. But it starts being the nanny of a team. That's totally right. It starts with that. And then you slowly become a lateral leadership position within your team, gain knowledge, and it's not a job that you can do in a half year's time and then you become senior or something like that. It just comes over time. But it's rewarding because you work with people.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Frank. I think it was very insightful, very stimulating as well.
Thank you.
And I think this has been amazing to bring you here on the session today. And I think this will be a fantastic session and fantastic podcast episode. Really appreciate you being willing to open up and also share so deeply and so wisely on different topics.
Thank you so much, Vivek, for giving me this opportunity to talk about myself and the profession that I really love. Thank you so much, Vivek. It was a pleasure being here on your show.
For people who would like to reach out to you in case they have questions, what would be the right channel for them?
So I'm on LinkedIn. That's one of the easiest way to do. LinkedIn.com/in/Frank Ewert, FrankEwert, Berlin. That normally you will find me there. You should be able, and that's perfect then.
Thank you for joining this podcast. I hope this was useful and you learned a lot. For more such great podcasts, please do not forget to subscribe to the podcast channel In Your Shoes on SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple Music. New podcasts are uploaded every 2 weeks. Goodbye.